Welcome back. This is part 5 of our Introduction to Java series, where we're going to be covering loops. A loop is what tells a program to repeat a statement multiple times. So the first example we're going to do is a while loop. So I'm going to make a new package, and I'm going to call this package part 5. And since the last part of this series, I've changed the package names from being part 1 with 1 spelled out to having the number 1 because it goes in alphabetical order and not numerical order, and it was starting to annoy me. So that's why I made the change to part 5 with a number 5. So now it will be the next package at the bottom. So part 5. And we're going to call this a new class, and we're going to call this while loop examples. So the first thing that we want to do is make our main method, right? So public static void main string args. And we're going to do our examples within this main method. We don't need to make our own function. So what if I wanted to print something out 100 times? Before learning about loops, we would have to write, like if I wanted to print out meow 100 times. So system.out.print line, and then write meow. And I would have to do this 100 times. So I have to copy, paste to do it 100 times. And that's a little inefficient. So that's where loops come in. So we can do something like a while loop, since this is called while loop examples. A while loop executes a statement repeatedly as long as that condition is true. So we're going to say while something is less than 100, let's outprint meow. So I'm going to make a counter versus int count, and we default this to be 0. Then while our count is less than 100, we're going to print out meow. There's something wrong with this statement, and what's wrong is, in this case, this would run forever because I'm never actually incrementing count. So I have to increment count. So to increment in Java, you do count plus plus. So our count is initially 0. So set count to initially 0. And then our loop checks that count is less than 100. And if it's true, which is what we learned in all of our logic examples, so if this case is true, this statement occurs. If it isn't true, which means that it's false, then we move on outside of our while loop. So what happens is our loop would terminate, and then we move on to our next statement. In this case, we move to the end of our main method, and the program is done. So let's run this code, and we should see meow 100 times. Right click, run. And a lot of meows, right? I'm scrolling up and there's all the meows. I'm not going to count it. I know it's 100. It's 100 because we start at 0 and it goes plus. So 0 plus plus becomes 1, then becomes 2, 3, 4, all the way up to, then we have 99 less than 100. 99 gets added on to become 100, and 100 is not less than 100, and we break out. If you're not sure about that, you could print out what your count is. So you could say system.out.print, and we'll do line, and we're going to first print our count. So now you'll see what count we're at, and then we'll get our meow. Let's put this on one line. So we can do count plus meow. So it'll be 1 meow, 2 meow, 3 meow, etc., etc. And this is going to actually start at 0 because we're starting at 0 here. So 0 meow, then 1 meow. Right click, run. All the way up to 99 meow. See? It's showing we're starting at 0, then we add 1 and move on. This is happening iteratively. And like I said before, a while loop continues executing as long as this statement right here is true. So let's use our knowledge of while loops to make a simple program, and this will be a quiz game. And what will occur is that we'll get 2 random integers, single digits, and we're going to ask the user to tell us what the multiplication of those 2 numbers is. What's the result of them being multiplied? So let's make a new Java class. We'll call this multiplication quiz. And we're going to keep this all in our main method. So public static void main string args. So first what we want to do is have 2 random numbers get generated. And these are going to be integers and single digits. So we go int number 1. And this will make we're going to generate a random number. So in Java, we can use a function called math.random. Math.random generates a number between 0 and 0.9. So in order to make this a single digit, what we have to do is multiply it by 10. And it's a random double, so we're going to have to then cast it to an integer. So we're going to do int and then math.random times 10. And this will, I'm going to leave a comment right here, generate a number between 0 and 9. And we'll do the same for number 2. So int number 2, exact same code. So we can just copy paste. We're not going to just say int number 2 equals number 1 because it's not going to randomly generate the number again. We copy this comment as well. Now we're going to read in user input. What's going to happen is we're going to ask a user, what is number 1 times number 2? And they're going to guess it. So if number 1 was 5 and number 2 was 4, and they put in 20, we'll say, yeah, you're correct, and the program will end. If they don't put in 20, we'll say, wrong, try again. Okay? So while they don't guess the correct number, or the number isn't correct, then we're going to keep repeating, try again. So we're going to utilize what we learned about while loops, right? So let's make our input reader scanner. And this automatically imported in our Java util. So scanner input equals new scanner system.in. And I made a mistake here, capital S for system. We're going to outprint to the user. So system.out.println what is, and we'll say number 1, and we'll put a little asterisk for times, plus number 2. Wow, can't type. Question mark. And now we need to read in their answer. So we're going to say int answer equals input dot next int, right? We're reading in an integer. So remember, we learned this within our discriminant example, that we did earlier on in the series. So this is where we learned how to do an input and read in from the Java terminal. So while number 1 times number 2, any guesses, does not equal the answer. Then we want to tell the user to try again. Basically, we're going to make them keep trying until they get the right answer. So system.out.println wrong answer, please try again. We'll say please. Semicolon, and then we need to read in the next answer from the user, right? So we need to update what answer is here. So answer equals input dot next int. If they get answer correctly. So number 1 and number 2, we got 5 and 4, and they guessed 20. We gotta say, congratulations, you got it. And then the program ends. So we go system.out.println, yay, you got it right. So there you go. Yay, you got it right. Let's run this and see how it works. Run it. So we get randomly generated, what is 2 times 9? We know 2 times 9 is 18. So let's first show it wrong. So we put 1. Wrong answer, please try again. 10. Wrong answer, please try again. It's going to keep repeating this until you get the right answer. So we put in 18. Yay, you got it right. And then the program has terminated. So congratulations, now you've utilized a while loop in a little bit more than just an iterative function. So now let's learn about for loops. Let's take our first while loop example, which was outprinting meow 100 times, and turn it into a for loop. So I'm going to do right click, new, Java class, and I'm going to call this for loop examples. Let's make our main function public static void main string args. So for loops give us a little more concise syntax than our while loop. So thinking back, we wanted to outprint meow 100 times. We can use this with a for loop. So what we do is for, and we define our int I in here. So for int I equaling 0, I is less than 100, I plus plus. Now we don't need to keep a separate counter. A counter is actually inside our for loop. And then all we write is system.out.println. And let's inspire from the last example of our while loop, which was count plus meow. Let's do I plus meow. So I plus meow. And if we run this code, it will be exactly the same as our last while loop example. So right click, run. There we go, 99 meows. Well, 100 meows, but 99 meow at the end. So for loops, as you can tell, versus a while loop, start with the keyword for, whereas a while loop is with your keyword while. For loops, you use more towards those iterative problems like the while loop that we showed in our first example. That's what you would do with your for loop. But use the loop that you find most convenient to you. I prefer to use while loops for numbers that the repetition isn't really fixed. It's not just 100 times or X amount of times or I amount of times. That's where I prefer a while loop. So thinking about it with our multiplication quiz, it's the perfect example of when we use a while loop. If we want to outprint everything In an array, which we'll learn more about arrays in our next part, that's when you would probably use a for loop, because now you have a set amount that you want to print out. Either way, you have just learned how to do while loops and for loops in Java, so you've gotten another step further into your Java journey. I'll see you in part 6.